This is your unlucky day. Don't laugh. I happen to have written a thesis on the Trinity. It's the only day a year I can talk about it with a captive audience. Hey, I'm pretty good most of the time. I get a few minutes credit extra. So settle in. If you're Irish, or you're Irish on March 17th, you'll notice that one of the images that appears is the shamrock, or as my mother used to say, the clover, which it is. And there's supposedly four-leaf clovers occasionally. I found one once. They exist. But the shamrock, I don't think most people going in the parade on St. Patrick's Day, in whatever states of inebriation we are in on that very glorious day, realizes what that shamrock's really about. St. Patrick, who was a real person, St. Patrick used that shamrock as a way to explain to the natives of Ireland who God was. The Trinity. Now we have about 1.6 billion Catholics, add another few hundred million Christians. Let's say we're at the 2.2 billion mark of Christians. And the one thing we do share in common, all Christians, is the Trinity. That's what makes us Christian. In fact, it's so important that at baptism, our initiation into the Christian faith, we use a Trinitarian formula. I baptize you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. It's at the foundation of who we are as Christians. So, who is this Trinity? My Jewish friends and Muslim friends keep saying, you know, you'd be better off not being pagan and believe in one God. I said, we do. They say, no, you've got God the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. You got three gods there. So, very briefly, as complicated as it is, I think we can use St. Patrick's image of the shamrock to really give us a basic idea of what we understand and who we understand God to be. It was a very hotly debated issue in the 300s and 400s AD. And then it popped up again with Thomas Aquinas in the 1200s. Very important doctrine for us. The Trinity is really about how God communicates with us. And it is our experience of that communication. So as you heard in the first reading, God the Father creates the world. Jesus is the communicator, the Word. He comes and talks to us in the flesh. And the Spirit is the guiding force of the church. It's why we are still here today as Christians. But they're all one God. They're three manifestations of the same entity, God. Just as the shamrock has three individual leaves, it's still one shamrock. It's a little like us too with personalities and roles that we play. I play a father, I play an employee, I play a social person, but it's still me. One person, one entity, three different manifestations. So maybe you might look at it in a simplified way as the three faces of the same God. But they're individual as well, and that's what makes it complicated. And we probably won't go into that except to remember that God speaks to us through Jesus. And in that, we understand him to be as much God as God the Father or the Spirit, and so too with the Holy Spirit. Sorry, that's just the way he did it. We just have to deal with it. But I think if we understand it like that shamrock, it's one person, but he manifests himself in three ways. That should work for us. Just as we manifest ourselves in different ways, yet are the same person. So when we hear in the Nicene Creed today, listen carefully toward the end, you'll hear about the Holy Spirit. And one of the big arguments in the Trinity for many generations was, did Jesus proceed, come from God the Father and the Holy Spirit through Jesus? This would suggest subordination, meaning that God is God and Jesus is less than God because he was created by God. But that isn't how we believe it. All three are God. I leave you with that. It is a bit confusing still. Think of the shamrock. That's easier. But also think of our promises that we make for, or made for us in baptism, and how the Trinity, the three manifestations of God, are the beginning of our Christian life. And then we spend our lives finding out about how God speaks to us, how he is present to us, and how he continues to give us strength in our world today. That's the importance of Trinity for us. Otherwise, it can be quite mind-boggling. But then again, God is mind-boggling.